Good morning, good morning, good morning, my friends. I hope you're all well and that you're feeling fresh this Monday morning and energetic and ready to have a good time. And if you're not feeling that way, I hope that you will feel better and bring compassion to yourself, however you feel. Anyway, basically, my point is, hi, I'm happy you're here. Let's get into the topic for this week. So on Instagram this week, we're going to be posting posts about challenging family dynamics. Why are we doing this? So the majority of us experience challenging family dynamics, whether that's within our nuclear family, our extended families, or even with our in-laws. And sometimes it's even with friends. So we want to speak about this week, just so that you can have some helpful tips, how to navigate these kinds of relationships, so that they don't have to be so painful. And also because it's just very important to understand our family dynamics and how they impact us, right? Because what you grow up around becomes your internal narrative. You know, what you grow up around hearing, so what your family used to say to each other, the way your family used to implicitly behave with each other. So maybe it wasn't even the things they said, but the things that were unsaid. All of this impacts our psyches as we grow up and becomes our internal dialogue. Our internal dialogue becomes our beliefs, our cognitive schema, and our beliefs then dictate what we experience in our lives. Our narratives create our realities, right? So if you had an experience within your family where you felt someone somewhat unfavored or unlovable, for example, then that stays within your psyche, right? That belief of I am less lovable than others or I am unlovable. And then that affects your new relationships within the present day, right? You approach the people within your life from that belief system, and that has a ripple effect. It has an impact. You might end up being extremely sensitive to rejection, for example, and then that pisses off your partner, or it can create issues. You might be extremely sensitive and feel jealousy or whatever, but I think you get the point. Basically, our narrative creates our reality. So we need to understand family dynamics in order to free ourselves from repeating the pattern of, creating that dynamic within your current situation in the present, basically. So how do you do this? So first of all, my first tip is practice your own self-awareness. Do sessions, okay? And understand, what it is about their behavior that bothers you, why it bothers you, and how it makes you feel. So, for example, you may feel as though your mom, for example, gives more attention to your siblings than to you. And then you might end up feeling forgotten. And that might make you want to say, like, hey, what about me? Like, kind of when are my needs seen? You might have a sibling who behaves unpleasantly towards you, and that makes you feel hurt, and it might make you sort of oscillate between different emotions. You might feel anger sometimes and want to say, like, fuck off, like, get a life, and other times you might feel extreme sadness and wish that you were closer. You might have a partner in your current relationship, your current family dynamic, who barely notices you or is downright nasty to you. So it's very important to understand what's happening, what's the pattern, what is it about the other person's behavior that triggers you, what makes you feel hurt, and what does that bring about within you? What does it make you want to do? How does it make you want to act out? The second thing to consider is the relationship dangerous or just difficult to navigate, right? Because these are different. Dangerous requires more immediate action. And when you answer this question, is it dangerous or difficult to navigate, you understand what kind of boundaries you need to put in place in order to protect your energy and possibly even create a more positive interaction. And something that I want to say is that dangerous doesn't just have to be like, the relationship is physically abusive. Dangerous could also be it brings so much toxicity when you're around this person. It brings so much toxicity into you as a human being, or into your, then, for example, if it's an extended family member, when they're around, it could be that it brings so much toxicity into your nuclear family that you need to create a boundary. And remember, guys, that boundaries are different and they can change. You can change them. They don't have to stay solid. So you can have extreme boundaries, which might not be extreme in certain situations. You might have a boundary which says, we will never see this person again. Maybe that person has caused so much damage that you say, we will never interact with this person again. But then you might have boundaries like, we will interact with this person, once every 3 weeks and for a limited period of time, and we will not talk about certain topics with them. For example, you create different boundaries and, you decide on them in order to protect your energy. And sometimes it's not only your energy that you need to protect, but it's your family as well. It's your kids, it's your partner. You get the picture. My next tip is to pause before responding. So, what do I mean by this? Certain, people who have been around you for a while are going to be more aware of what triggers you, of what pushes your buttons. So, when they want to get your attention, they're going to push those buttons. And what happens is, your buttons are pushed, you get triggered. So when you get triggered, you feel hurt, you feel pissed off, you feel vulnerable, whatever. That puts you into a state of fight or flight and you react, right? You flip your lid kind of thing. What happens when you do this is that it keeps the cycle going. It keeps this unconscious pattern of toxicity going. You can't break the pattern because you are reacting from an unconscious space as well. So rather than being reactive, pause before responding. So this person pushes your buttons, it hurts you or whatever it does to you, whatever it makes you feel. Acknowledge that emotion within yourself. Don't not acknowledge it. Acknowledge it. Stay with it. Process it, however you choose to process it. Talk to somebody you trust who has compassion, who can practice compassion. Journal it to gain some perspective. And then ask yourself, what's my intention for this relationship? Right? Because if you just stay with the unconscious reactivity, you're just going to keep that cycle going. But if you ask yourself, what's my intention for this relationship? That I want us to remember that we love each other, or I want this relationship to heal, or I want this relationship to be as healthy as possible, right? Then you're going to approach that confrontation from a much different energy than if you just stay with the hurt, right? Because if you just stay with the hurt, you're going to stay with this self-righteous kind of energy where you just want to attack back, or you want to destroy, or you want to defend, or you want to block off, right? It's a very... I don't know that unloving is the right word, but it's an ego state, right? It's a very protective mechanism kind of state. Whereas if you choicefully say, my intention is to heal the relationship, or for it to be as healthy as possible, or I want us to remember that we love each other, you go into that space with a much different energy. It's more open. I don't know if you noticed, but I actually breathed deep when I got in touch with the intention. It's more open. You open your chest, you open your heart space more. And when you open your heart space more, you can be more compassionate with the other person. It doesn't mean you let that other person walk all over you. People have their reasons for being pissed off, right? People have their reasons for lashing out at you. They might be stressed, they might be tired, they might have had an awful childhood themselves and they're full of trauma, whatever, who knows? That doesn't mean you let people walk all over you, but it does mean that you can step into a more compassionate space while you put down your boundaries, right? So this is my fourth and final tip. It is to practice compassion and forgiveness. When you practice compassion and forgiveness, what's happening is you are acknowledging yourself within the other. What do I mean by this? We all have the potential to act out. In fact, we have all acted out at some point or another, or at several points in our lives. Why did we act out? We acted out because we were in pain, we were hurting, we were lost, we were fearful. So when you can acknowledge that this person is acting out because they are responding from a space of fear, then you can soften towards them. Again, it doesn't mean that you allow the behavior to continue or that you just lie down and take it, but it does mean that you experience their behavior less as an attack towards you and more of a reflection of where they are at that point in time. And from that space, you can choose to be kinder with them. Even whilst you keep your boundaries, you can choose to be kinder with them because you see the human within them.